Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today I'll analyze the case of Chelsea Grimm. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the incident, then offer my analysis. Chelsea Grimm was born on March 22, 1991, and was raised in Stamford, Connecticut. She lived with her parents, Stephen and Janet, and had a sister. After high school, Chelsea went to Pace University and studied psychology. She then attended New York University. In 2019, she earned a master's degree in social work. Chelsea found a job as a social worker with the New York City Department of Education. In 2020, Chelsea moved to San Diego, California, and lived in an apartment with her boyfriend in the Ocean Beach neighborhood. She didn't seem as focused on her social work career during this time, but appeared to be interested in functioning as a photographer. Later, Chelsea did get back on track with social work. In November 2022, she obtained her license as an associate clinical social worker in California. When Chelsea and her boyfriend separated, she became romantically involved with a musician named Philip. He had a pet bearded dragon named Roxy or Roz. A bearded dragon is a small lizard, which typically gets to about 18 to 24 inches long and weighs roughly 1 pound. Eventually, the romantic relationship between Chelsea and Philip failed. It appears as though Chelsea had possession of Philip's lizard by this point. Now moving to the timeline of the incident. In September 2023, Chelsea planned on traveling from San Diego to her parents' home in Connecticut. The purpose of this trip was to attend a wedding. Chelsea tried to book a plane ticket, but the airline would not permit her to bring the lizard on the plane. This was unacceptable to Chelsea. She did not want to be separated from the lizard. Therefore, she decided to drive to Connecticut. This trip is about 2,816 miles and takes about 41 hours to drive. On September 24, 2023, Chelsea started the trip in her white 2019 Ford Escape. She had packed her camera, sleeping bag, tent, and other equipment and supplies. On September 27, Chelsea visited a friend in Phoenix, Arizona. It only takes about 5 hours to drive from San Diego to Phoenix, so it's not clear why this meeting occurred 3 days after her departure. Maybe Chelsea stopped along the way, or perhaps she arrived in Phoenix days before meeting with her friend. Chelsea made plans with her friend to have lunch the next day, but then canceled those plans. At this point, Chelsea drove to the small town of Seligman, Arizona, which is 3 hours north of Phoenix. She walked into a motel and tried to rent a room by paying with the euros. Chelsea appeared to be disoriented. On the same day, September 27, Chelsea told her parents that she was discontinuing her cross-country journey. She was giving up on the idea of driving to Connecticut. She could not do the trip by herself. Her plan was to camp for a few days and then return to San Diego. Chelsea indicated that she might not have cell phone service while she was camping. She made her way to Williams, Arizona, which is about 40 minutes east of Seligman. On September 28, 2023, the police in Williams received a call about a suspicious person sitting in a vehicle near Williams Cemetery. An officer responded and approached Chelsea as she was sitting in her Ford Escape. He asked her if she was doing all right. Chelsea responded, quote, "Yeah, I was just doing a photo shoot of the lost soldiers and got a little emotional, so I was crying before I got back on the road," unquote. The officer asked Chelsea if she had been smoking marijuana. Chelsea responded, "Yeah, earlier today." Chelsea asked if she could hang out there for another 15 or 20 minutes and then be on her way. The officer asked her if she had a hotel room in the area. Chelsea said, quote, "I don't. I was actually thinking of just camping for the night, but I wasn't really sure exactly yet. I didn't plan to be here until sunset," unquote. The officer advised her that she could not camp in the city, but told her there was a truck stop called Love's where she could sleep. Nobody would bother her there. Chelsea said, "Awesome. Yeah, love that." She indicated that she would probably stay at the truck stop overnight. On October 4, 2023, Chelsea's family reported her missing. They had not heard from her since September 27. On October 5, hunters reported to the police that they had found Chelsea's Ford Escape on October 3. The vehicle was in the Kaibab National Forest on Forest Service Road 6, northeast of Ash Fork, Arizona. This town is 20 minutes west of Williams. Chelsea's vehicle was abandoned in the middle of a dirt road, and there were no footprints leading away from it. It was locked, and the tires on the passenger side were flat. Chelsea's sleeping bag, cell phone, and wallet were missing. The lizard was missing as well. Several personal belongings, including Chelsea's tent and camera, were in the vehicle. The last photograph taken with her camera was on September 30. The police learned that on that same day, September 30, a woodcutter had spotted Chelsea in her vehicle near Ash Fork. It appeared as though she was camping. He offered her help, but she said that she was okay. She was just taking pictures. This was the last time anyone reported having contact with Chelsea. Since she went missing, Chelsea's cell phone has not had any activity, and there have been no transactions on her credit card. Using canines, the police searched a 3-mile radius from her vehicle, but the dogs did not alert to anything. At the time I'm making this video, Chelsea Grimm remains missing. Now moving to my analysis. There are 3 main theories about what happened in the case of Chelsea Grimm. She walked off into the desert-like wilderness and died from something like dehydration or exposure. She was kidnapped, or nothing happened to her. Maybe she was given a ride from where her vehicle was disabled and simply continued with her life somewhere else. Maybe she started over. Let's take a look at each of these 3 theories. Starting with theory number 1, Chelsea walked off into the wilderness and died. There are many factors supporting this theory. According to a family member, Chelsea had been diagnosed with ADHD and PTSD. Not long before her disappearance, she broke up with her boyfriend and blocked her sister on social media. Chelsea decided to make a long road trip based on her desire to not be separated from a lizard. Based on her history, she was spontaneous and attracted to adventure. However, this road trip was ambitious, even by her standards. During her last conversation with her parents, she told them she was upset with her romantic life. When Chelsea was at the motel in Seligman, Arizona, she appeared to be confused. She tried to pay for a room with euros and wanted help finding a place that would exchange them for dollars. Chelsea told the clerk at the motel that she wanted to live off the grid and implied that she was being pursued by a former romantic partner. It sounds like Chelsea may have been paranoid. The next day, she was suspiciously parked near a cemetery in the dark. When she was approached by the police, she indicated that she had been crying and using marijuana. 2 days after this, a woodcutter saw Chelsea not far from where her vehicle was ultimately found. She was alone and said she was okay. There was no indication that anyone was bothering her. After she went missing and her vehicle was found, the police noticed that the 2 passenger side tires were flat. Considering the rugged terrain in the area of Arizona where she disappeared, it makes sense that these tires were damaged when driving the vehicle, like Chelsea drifted too far to the right on a dirt road and struck a formation of jagged rocks. This probably wasn't a case of somebody approaching the vehicle and damaging the tires with some type of sharp instrument. There was no indication of a struggle in or around Chelsea's vehicle. Maybe Chelsea took her cell phone, wallet, and sleeping bag because she was planning on spending some time hiking. She didn't take her tent because she planned on returning before too long. It's also possible that she didn't take her tent because her objective was to get somewhere where she would not need a tent, like she wanted to walk back to a town and stay in a motel. The problem with the wandering off into the wilderness theory is how Chelsea's body was never found. Is she alive or dead? If she is dead, how did she die? There is no way to know without a body. Moving to theory number 2, Chelsea was kidnapped. There is some evidence supporting this theory. Chelsea appeared to be paranoid, but maybe she was correct and someone was out to get her. Perhaps this had nothing to do with mental health symptoms. The police were never able to find Chelsea's body. If she had simply walked into the wilderness, one would think that she would not have made it very far. A kidnapping would explain why her body was missing. The problem with this theory is how it would be unlikely for a criminal to just stumble upon Chelsea in such a remote area. Up to the point when she went missing, it was clear that everything that happened to Chelsea was due to her own decisions. She drove there on her own. She stopped communicating with family members. She refused help from the police officer. She refused help from the woodcutter. Chelsea put herself in that position. What are the chances that an evil kidnapper would just spontaneously appear on the scene? Of course, it is possible, like maybe this was a crime of opportunity, but a kidnapping is a big commitment for a random person just going about their business. As far as theory number 3, Chelsea started a new life. This is consistent with Chelsea's body not being found and the absence of a struggle in and around her vehicle. If Chelsea is not in the area and there was no kidnapping, maybe she is alive. There are a few problems with this theory. Chelsea did not call anyone for a ride, so how did she obtain transportation out of the area? How is she making a living in her new life? It is very hard to survive without leaving any digital footprint. Finally, across myriad mysterious disappearances, there are very few examples of a person who started a new life. This is almost never the correct explanation. In the rare instances where this has happened, it is often a man who has committed crimes and was trying to start over, not a young woman with mental health symptoms. With all this in mind, how would I rank these theories from most to least probable? I think the most probable theory is number 1. During some type of mental health episode, Chelsea damaged her vehicle, wandered off into the wilderness, and died. The next theory would be number 2. An opportunistic kidnapper stumbled upon Chelsea. Then I would go with theory number 3. Chelsea is out there somewhere living a new life and somehow not leaving any evidence of her behavior behind. In my opinion, the likelihood of theory number 1 far exceeds the likelihood of theory number 2, and theory number 3 is extremely unlikely. Now moving to my final thoughts. There's not a lot of information available about Chelsea's mental health, but it appears as though she was paranoid. If this is true, it could explain what happened. When a person feels paranoid, they sometimes want to get away from society. Maybe this is what Chelsea was trying to do. She wanted to live off the grid because she was afraid of being tracked. When Chelsea damaged the tires on her vehicle, she knew she was in trouble. However, the paranoia was too strong. The fear from paranoia outweighed the fear of whatever would happen based on having flat tires. Unwilling to use her cell phone, she tried to solve her problem in another way, by hiking through the wilderness. This led to disaster. Again, this is just a theory, but I think it makes the most sense based on the evidence. This case is frightening because there is no clear way it could have been prevented. It's not like anybody made a mistake that caused Chelsea to go missing. People actually tried to help her, but her feelings were getting in the way. Those are my thoughts on the case of Chelsea Grimm. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. There's a large variance as far as media coverage with these disappearances. This particular case was not as well covered as many others. A lack of mainstream media coverage leads to a lot of informal posts on various websites. Misinformation was everywhere in this case. For example, some sources claim that Chelsea visited her sister in Phoenix in addition to visiting that friend. But this did not happen. Her sister was not in Phoenix. There were other sources that indicated Chelsea was driving a Ford Focus hatchback and not a Ford Escape. Her vehicle was definitely a Ford Escape. These types of inaccuracies are not the only kind out there. There were also a few people claiming to have information or some connection to Chelsea. Maybe they're telling the truth, but maybe they're not. There's no way to know. This is one of those cases that is ripe for people using unverified claims to construct wild theories about what happened. It's amazing how quickly people try to fill in the gaps in a story. They just can't deal with the uncertainty. So they shove anything they can find into these gaps and say, well, now it looks good. The story is complete. It makes sense now. I know what happened. I figured it out. Chelsea is missing because she was abducted by aliens, or she was the victim of a massive government conspiracy. The reality of Chelsea's situation is probably much less sensational.